Why in the richest country on earth aren't we ending homelessness and building 5 million units of low-income and affordable housing?
Together, New York, we're going to freeze the... Together, New York, we're going to make buses fast and... Together, New York, we're going to deliver universal... We will make our city one where every person who calls it home can live a dignified life.
Welcome, everybody, to Talk of the Bay. I'm your host, Meilin Obinata. You're just hearing an excerpt from the Zohran Mamdani event from this weekend with Bernie Sanders and Anastasia Ocasio-Cortez. So in that great city of New York, voters are attending to affordability struggles. And with me today, I have some guests who can address aspects of affordability in Salinas, specifically regarding renter protections. One of my guests is a council member. The other guest is a voter. So I believe they are on. Do we see you, Councilmember Andrew Sandoval?
Yes, good afternoon.
Great, thank you for joining us. And Sam Messenger, are you with us?
Hi, happy to be here.
Thank you. So, thank you both for joining today's show. I just want to give people a little bit of background on the history of the renter ordinances in Salinas, which have been the subject of great attention recently. So between 2000 and 2024, the median rent increased 7 times the increase of renter incomes. And 50% of city renters are rent burdened, meaning they are paying more than 30% of their income on housing. And in 2022, market rate rents were unaffordable for the median income renter, requiring them to spend more than 41% of their income on rents. And in 2024, in September, the Salinas City Council adopted a package of protection ordinances, including protection from just cause eviction, anti-harassment, and rent stabilization. That is a package of ordinances which the 2025 Salinas City Council reversed, I would say, because in November of 2024, the composition of the Salinas City Council had some changes. I believe 3 spots changed. So as a result, community members organized to put the issue in front of the city council once again. So I wanted to speak with Councilmember Sandoval to kind of catch us up. I previously interviewed Dr. John Silva of the Protect Salinas Renters Coalition and Andrew Sandoval of that coalition before the votes were all gathered for the referendum petition. Councilmember Sandoval, could you kind of catch us up from what happened between the gathering of the signatures to the current day?
Sure. Well, thank you for this opportunity. And so the successful collection of the over 10,000 signatures has led the city council to reconsider their decision to repeal the repeal or to send it to the ballot. And in between there, the Salinas Valley Chamber of Commerce, I think working with the mayor, decided, well, let's try to negotiate. And so they sent out a request to have representation from the Protect Salinas renters to, I guess, negotiate these ordinances. And they set some unrealistic timelines. I guess the mayor was trying to maybe save face and see if there was some negotiation that could be struck. Protect Salinas renters met with their volunteers and they decided that the voice of the people was clear and loud, and it wasn't a negotiation. I think they also said who were they to negotiate on behalf of 10,000 people. And so there was an effort by the chamber, in my opinion, not to have a transparent process for input on how in the future these ordinances could be addressed. So after there was a short postponement of the decision whether or not to repeal or send it to the voters. And then at a subsequent city council meeting, the vote was 4-2, or was it 5-2, to send it to the election, and one council member and the mayor voted to just repeal the repeal, and the rest send it to the voters.
Thank you. So that will be on the November 2026 ballots.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you. And so it's almost the end of October now, and I wanted to speak with the other guest, Sam Messenger. How did you learn about the Protect Salinas Renters petition? Why was that of interest to you?
I had heard about it from a friend of mine who works in housing advocacy, and she had just told me that it was the sort of thing that we wanted to be on board with. And then I saw it at the Old Town Farmers Market, and I decided to sign.
All right. And whenabouts did you sign?
Oh, gosh. Must have been about a month ago at this point, maybe 6 weeks.
All right. So then what happened?
Well, a couple weeks ago, people in Salinas will remember we had an awful lot of rain. An individual came and knocked on the door of my home who seemed to be indicated that they were a investigator with the DA's office, which is rather sort of interesting event in an otherwise rather boring day. And she wanted to talk to me about having signed the petition. So I sat down with her, and turns out they were investigating whether people had been given monetary incentives or discounts on products at the farmers market in return for signatures, which of course I said no. I would not have signed it if such a thing were on offer. And she seemed to have a list of a very large number of signatures from that petition, and was going around asking people about it.
So just to be clear, so this is someone from the Monterey County District Attorney's Office?
That's correct.
Okay. So for K-Squid listeners out there, just know I did try to contact or get some comment from the Monterey County District Attorney's Office, and the reaction was no comments. So I will say that the Fair Political Practices Commission, it can authorize local law enforcement, such as a district attorney of a county or so on. That is something that they can have the jurisdiction to investigate. But that is something the district attorney's office did not confirm or deny. I did get a hold of some complaints, and some of you might have read the Monterey County Weekly article about this very thing. I believe they reported on this in the evening of Wednesday of last week. But the paper, or in the paper, we learned that the complaints are identical. There are two complaints that are, I guess, verbatim, word for word the same, but filed by two different people. So we don't know for a fact if those are the complaints that the DA's office is investigating. So that is an area of ambiguity at this time. So have you ever had, Sam, a district attorney investigator knock on your door before?
No, I've never had anything of the kind happen to me. I've never had a run-in with the police. I've never had a run-in with any investigator like this. It was rather remarkable.
So, how did they address Is it just like, is it like detectives on TV or?
Yeah, a little bit like that. It's like business casual type thing. It was, she was somewhat underdressed for the weather, but it was kind of a freak storm. So.
Okay. And then how do they identify themselves?
She gave me her name and she said, I'm an investigator with the district attorney's office. And I was wondering if you would have time to answer a few questions.
And this is in the daytime or?
Yeah, I think it was around 2 or 3 p.m.
Mm-hmm. So, I guess when you went to the farmer's market and you signed the petition, I mean, is there anything anyone could have given you that would have, I'm just trying to think, like, what was at the farmer's market? Are there giveaways or like what's going on?
Not that I'm aware of. No, it's a bunch of stalls of people selling produce. There's a couple of street food vendors, food trucks, that sort of thing. And I'm there every Saturday, more or less, just to walk around and nothing. Occasionally there's people asking for signatures on petitions. Occasionally there's some people doing some political activism. But I've never been given a giveaway or a gift certificate or anything like that.
Okay. So you were saying it's otherwise pretty boring day except for this visit for the investigator. Can I ask, like, what are you, like, ethnically and your age? I'm a 27-year-old white man. I live with my parents in Salinas while I'm going to school. That's more or less my background. I'm trying to become an attorney and maybe enter politics. All right. Thank you. Anything else you want to share with us about that experience?
The investigator was completely polite and forthright that I wasn't in any trouble, which was nice. But I definitely, there is some sense that if this is some kind of act of political retaliation against the Renters Association, that would not surprise me whatsoever. And
is there a reason you're worried about that? Or that it comes to mind?
It comes to mind. That was just one. I told a couple people about this when it happened, and that was something that they suggested might be possible. There's obviously a significant moneyed interest in our area who want to keep rents high. The sort of political capital to make that sort of thing happen, it wouldn't surprise me if it existed.
Is affordability something that concerns you as a resident of Salinas?
As a resident of Salinas, as a resident of California, as an American citizen, affordability of rents is forthright in my mind, and most of my political thinking has to do with cost of living.
Why is that? Like, why are you worried? To play devil's advocate, why are you worried about that?
I'm worried because, I grew up upper middle class in this area, and I had lots of friends who were upper middle class, and even people like us who are quote unquote privileged are having significant trouble finding affordable housing in this area. And so when it comes to people, my many, many friends who are less well off than me, they are suffering. They're just suffering. It's an oppressive environment for renters in this state.
Wow. Thank you. So I was just speaking with Sam Messenger, who had received a visit from the Monterey County District Attorney's office in the form of an investigator, asking about his act of signing the petition that the Protect Salinas Renters Coalition was circulating, and that was in the Old Town Farmers Market. And he was remarking on how affordability is affecting people in Salinas and how that is a central part of his politics. Could you also share, when you say that affordability is central to what you are thinking about politics, could you just explain that a little bit more?
Sure. There's a great many number of very important political issues affecting Californian residents and affecting American citizens. But it's really, really hard to get to work on any of that sort of thing when we can't even afford to live, when we can't afford to pay rents, we can't afford groceries, and we can't afford what, a reasonable and I would say essential degree of recreation and pleasure in life. When everything is focused around how am I going to make rent this month, it sort of pushes all other concerns to the side. So before we can solve anything that needs solving, we need affordable housing. There's just no way around it.
Yeah, I believe there's a saying, rent eats first. So that's what came to mind when you said the pleasure in life. So yeah, it's hard to have pleasure in life because rent eats first. So thank you for sharing your thoughts about this. I'd like to ask Councilmember Sandoval, when you were learning about the visits from investigators, were you worried, or what was your reaction?
Yeah, absolutely. And I thought, my first reaction was how pathetic, to be honest, that you would think that that's the reason people were signing. A movement like this, actually, there's not a lot of people willing to contribute to fund movements like this. It's people power. And my second thought was, other than how pathetic and ridiculous this is poor people who signed. Because imagine, you have, is it Sam or Samuel, do you prefer?
Sam is good, thank you.
Sam, yeah, you have, a Sam, a 27-year-old young man, studying to be an attorney. That's one thing. Now imagine you are a new citizen who signed a petition and you have the district attorney showing up to your house. How likely are you to participate in future things like that? One of the struggles I face as someone trying to represent people is getting people engaged. And that's already a heavy lift. And, my concern is, this is going to have a chilling effect on democracy. And then we don't even know who they are targeting, or who are they knocking on their door. Are they only knocking on people's door whose signature was valid? Or maybe there was somebody at that farmer's market who said, yeah, I'm a registered voter, I'll sign. And maybe they're not a registered voter. And maybe they're getting a knock on their door. And we have to face the realities that we live in an area where, we have a lot of folks who may not have the proper documentation, and maybe they signed this, and do they deserve to have their door knocked on and questioned? Imagine that the fear that could be caused by something like this. That's what initially came to my mind. And then obviously anger and frustration with the district attorney's office, especially because as a member of our organization, LULAC, we've never had an issue speaking with the district attorney, and all of a sudden, a phone call to them results in an email that there'll be no comment.
Did you get an email?
Yes, I received an email telling me that the district attorney's office will not be commenting on this investigation.
Could you spell out the acronym of LULAC?
LULAC is LULAC, which is the League of Latin American Citizens. It's a national civil rights organization, and we've met with the district attorney several times over several years and never had an issue. And even the president of our local chapter, Chris Barrera, reached out, and no response.
I'll just say, when I heard about it, the first thing that came to my mind is if somebody knocked on my door, especially in the current environment in which we have the federal government in the form of ICE, with very chaotic behavior and also very poor identification of actual staff. I could see how this could definitely strike terror in the hearts of people receiving visits potentially. So that was one thing that just came to my mind, because I thought the potential for confusion and terror is extremely high. So that was one thing that came to my mind. I guess anyway, I have many questions. In terms of how the options in the city council meeting, in which I know there was like a flurry of motions, and I know you just went over it quickly when I asked, could you catch us up from the gathering of signatures to today? I think one option was to put the ordinances on a special election, or to have a special election. Another would be to repeal the repeal. I think you might have said that. And of course, this is the option that actually happened, would be to have it on the November 2026 ballot. So I believe a special election would have cost over $1 million. So it would have been quite expensive. So I was glad that that's not the route that that happened. But I'm also wondering, why not just repeal the repeal? Because I'm just thinking that would have, in my mind, that would have been the cleanest option. Maybe there's no point in like money marting quarterbacking at this time, but I'm just thinking if community has sort of expressed itself with the collection of all these signatures to have the referendum, I feel like that's also sending a message to electeds about what people can do if they are voting in ways that are not matching the energy of the voter base. So I don't know if either of you want to react to that, but it's kind of like there's an old Janet Jackson song, "What Have You Done For Me Lately?" And I don't know if you're familiar with that, but in my mind, it didn't make sense not to just repeal the repeal, because that would seem the most elegant solution after receiving a referendum.
Yeah, I got a lot of questions about that, and there was a lot of unanswered questions, in my opinion. I think one of the questions I asked during the meeting was, well, how soon can the city council modify the ordinances after they repeal it? And if I remember correctly as well, there's no set timelines, meaning that, in theory, in 2 months, they could say, well, you know what, let's remove this protection, or perhaps let's increase the percentage that could be raised, a percentage. And so that unknown, prompted me to say, well, if I put it off to an election, that's one of the reasons, and let the voters decide, then those ordinances will be protected until the voters decide. The second part of that is I personally, along with a lot of other volunteers, circulated those petitions telling people that if you sign here, you'll let the voters decide. And there were a lot of people who signed, believe it or not, that were not in favor of the rental stabilization ordinances. And that seems really bizarre to me. I remember collecting a signature from this one gentleman named David, very, very against these ordinances. And I said, oh, would you consider signing? He goes, yes, of course I'll sign. And I said, why? You're against this? He goes, yeah, but what I'm for is I'm for democracy. And I saw what the city council did and the way they did it. And that wasn't appropriate. And I'd rather have the voters decide, even if it's not in my way. And that was a message that I told people is, it's okay, you don't agree with it, but you agree with democracy. And so democracy, let the voters decide. And so that's why I did it. But there was a lot of unknowns. I just couldn't risk them tweaking an ordinance that could open the door for landlords to start evictions. I just couldn't do it. At the end of the day, I had to live with it. I just couldn't open that door. And I do want to correct something really quick. It was the vote was not 5-2. It was 5-3. It was 4-3. It was Councilmember Barrera, Barajas, and the mayor who voted against sending it to the election. They were both in favor. Those three were in favor of the repeal.
Okay.
Just want to correct that. Sorry.
Yeah, I'll just honestly say it was difficult for me to follow what was happening, because I think I was watching online or something, and it was I found it. I'm like, wow, I feel really dumb watching this because I barely can follow what's going on. But yeah, just telling you guys, it's like, what? It's like watching, like a tennis match. It's like, it's going this way. It's like, what's happening? So that was, for me,
I think some of the council members were confused.
That was very interesting.
Sorry, was that out loud?
So, I also remember seeing in I believe the Salinas Valley Chamber of Commerce website, there was some language about something about how, like, even without, like, there are different ways you could have protections. And I thought that was really interesting. I believe it's like the Chamber of Commerce website at one time, I'm not sure if it's there now, but they referred to like improving like the life of renters without the package of ordinances or something. And they said I believe they said something like, oh, this is forthcoming. And I thought that was just very odd because they made it seem like the city council was about to do something. And I thought this doesn't make any sense because that's not, I don't remember the city council agreeing to like some yet other version of renter, I guess, assistance or so on. So I don't know if anybody has any words about that.
Can I read to you what was on their website? Of course.
Oh, okay, sure. Yes, if you have it.
It says the Salinas City Council is working on a new citywide support system for renters, focused on flexibility, fairness, and long-term housing stability. It says Salinas rental assistance possibilities include security deposit guaranteed that covers up to 75% of move-in deposits, emergency rental relief up to 6 months rent for tenants facing job loss, illness, or crisis, transitional housing support assistance, and it goes on, and it says inclusive citywide support available to qualifying renters in all neighborhoods, not just specific properties. I don't know what these folks are talking about, to be honest. Mm-hmm. I'm pretty sure I'm a member of the Salinas City Council, and I've yet to hear any of these things. This was on their website. You know, I reached out to them and asked them where they got this information from, because at the same time that they had it on their website, there was a door hanger that went out across Salinas with the same information. And I mean, these are some hefty promises.
Right.
I don't got that kind of money. You know, I don't know where they say this is going to come from. You know, the mayor during his press conference went on to say all these promises about a private-public partnership and, you know, these big old funds of pools of money that he's going to be working to get. I've heard zero. But Sam's right. You know, there's millions of dollars at stake right now for renters in Salinas. But yeah, that's some of the nonsense on the chamber website.
All right, we have a hard break at the 30-minute mark, which we will do right now.
People's Republic of Santa Monica is all about renters. That's what took over the city. We're up to 72% in Santa Monica. Wow. And it's because of rent control that we're protecting a lot of the diversity that exists in the city, but it's starting to slip away. Because there's people on my council, and you know, they mentioned one of my former mayors. I was the mayor, and then Sue followed me, Hemorrhage, and we have some folks that are supposedly strong Democrats on the council that believe any housing is good housing. And I'm against that, because high end, if you have $5,000, I can find you supposedly a rent control apartment in Santa Monica today. But that's not affordable. For me, it's all about, we need to incentivize true affordable housing. That's right. Because abundance never becomes affordable. Don't let them try to convince you that, you know, just building it is going to change it. It doesn't happen. It's like this Reaganomics, you know, that's going to trickle down. That's not going to happen. And they're just disguising it under this term of abundance, which is ridiculous.
You were hearing from Tony Vasquez, former mayor of Santa Monica, who is running for state treasurer of California. He was speaking at the state conference for the California Democratic Party at, I believe, a reception by the California Democratic Renters Council, and that was at the Monterey Hyatt on Saturday, October 25th. So I'm just reacting to him talking about how if your affordability definition is $5,000 a month, people can find so-called affordable housing. And also, he mentioned the word, I think, abundance twice. So, do either of you want to react to some of what Vasquez was saying?
Yeah, I had a couple thoughts about that. Ultimately, the issue is that the shortfall of units in the state is so nuclear level high that building and building fast and building as much as possible, in my opinion, has to be our number one priority.
Councilmember Sandoval?
No, I agree. I wish we could start building right away. I know we have a developer that is set to start construction, next year. But yeah, no, we need to be building as soon as possible. But the reality is, it's just not going to happen as fast as we'd like to see it happen. So that's why, for now, at least, we have here in the city of Salinas the rent stabilization issue before us. But I agree, we need to start building.
Yeah, and that's the thing about rent stabilization and rent control measures, is that they are not an end. They're a stopgap measure to protect renters while we build more. Ultimately, the desire, I think, would be for them to be repealed or changed in some fashion, but we have to help renters now, and that means rent stabilization and it means building.
So when I heard him talk about or mention the term abundance, I know that is a very hot topic in some circles. There's a book, I believe, by that name, written by Ezra Klein and Derek Thompson. And by the way, I happened to interview Malcolm Harris, who authored the book What's Left, and Malcolm Harris wrote an article, or rather a book review about abundance. I have not read the book Abundance, but I know that's like a very very sparkly topic at the moment. Both of you have talked about affordability in terms of rents. Are there any other issues in terms of affordability that you'd want everybody to pay attention to?
When it comes to affordability, especially in the state of California, where there's so much money already, if you're facing issues making housing more affordable, you have to ask yourself why. And I think part of asking yourself why is figuring out what the incentives are behind preventing affordability. So when we talk about the Chamber of Commerce and the City Council perhaps lying or not necessarily following the will of the voters, you have to ask yourself why, and the answer is the money. So where is their money coming from? Why are they able to get so much money? I think if there was a single issue that is like more important than affordability, it's money in politics, because again, without solving money in politics, you can't really solve any of the other problems.
Before I get your reaction, Councilmember Sandoval, one of the things I was reading about recently is the fact that I think New York State, the way they have their campaign finance laws, I guess there's some public matching funds, which is facilitating funding for the Zohran Mamdani campaign. So I think it was David Sirota was pointing out that none of this momentum that Mamdani is enjoying would be possible without a public finance structure, a campaign finance structure, which New York has. So I thought that was interesting. Councilmember Sandoval, are there other aspects of affordability that you'd like listeners to pay attention to?
No, I think Sam hit it right on nail on the head. I mean, money in politics is one of the biggest issues we're facing. Unfortunately, even if our city locally was to enact some kind of limits on money, you have what happened this last election was this giant PAC, Protect Salinas, $1.2 million, funnel in. So, yeah, I wish there was a solution, but I think anything at the local level would actually hurt, candidates who may not have that, that kind of funds available. I do kind of want to circle back a little bit to some of the questions I have, and I wish we could have the district attorney, who, by the way, is an elected official, hopefully be taking some meetings soon. Sam, and I haven't had a chance to speak to you, Sam, so thank you for coming on the air and being so bold. Of course, you have a great mom which I
She's
admire.
listening, by the way.
Well, I think she's freaking awesome, and she actually inspired me to be more bold. So I appreciate her very much. You know, you mentioned that there was a long list of signatures that the investigator had, which got me thinking. Did the district attorney have for example, a court order to get the elections department to release those records? Because pretty sure the elections department has a duty to maintain privacy for those. So, I drove myself down to the courthouse to see if there was a court order on file, and I couldn't find it. So those are some of the questions I'd like to have answered. Or did they just turn over, thousands of signatures because the DA had a hunch? So, if there's any other reporters out there or anybody interested in helping out, do some legal research on what's going on, that would be one of my questions.
Yeah, I don't have an answer, but I'll just mention I did a show, I think last year, about how there can be fights over public records. So I interviewed there is a UCSC graduate who had filed, I believe, a public records request under I think it's like the California Public Records Act. And I also interviewed the attorney for two organizations, those organizations were trying to attain records from the Atlanta Police Foundation for what's known as the Cop City Project, because these records, which they were trying to attain, were things like line item budgets and plans and so on. Since the foundation was accepting public taxpayer money, but was not disclosed, there's a lot that they were not disclosing. And that attorney, whose name escapes me at the moment, she was explaining that oftentimes people in various states, I believe she had represented government bodies as well as private entities. A lot of times that is one reason people seek her services, is because they're having trouble getting public records from public agencies under various public records acts. So I just realized I probably said public records like 20 times. So just following up with what Councilmember Sandoval was mentioning, how exactly did signature or data regarding signatures come into the custody of the district attorney's office? That is an interesting question indeed, as there are all kinds of privacy and other considerations. As a voter, right, if I sign a petition or and so on, and it's so easy to sign things, especially online, and it's terrifying to think that and I mean, on one hand, maybe nothing is private, but on the other hand, the risk of, I would say, scrutiny is often a friend to retaliation. And so that would make me very concerned. I think there should be transparency in understanding how exactly do public bodies gain such information when there are supposed to be walls between various public agencies.
Right. I did submit 2 public records requests to each agency to ask a series of those questions. So hopefully they'll be forthcoming. Sam, can I ask you a question? We're getting people who are reaching out to us and sharing that the district attorney investigator who was with them was carrying a gun. In your case, was the DA investigator, were they strapped?
Not that I could see. She had a blazer on that would have been covering both of the sort of standard hip positions, but I did not see.
Okay. Yeah, thank you.
It would be very strange to me if that DA investigator was carrying a firearm. That I think would be a little bit out of pocket, in my opinion.
Councilmember Sandoval, were you hearing people describing investigators as carrying weapons when they're visiting petition signers?
Yeah, we had folks saying that they had a gun, and so we were just trying to confirm, and we're in the process of, like I said, I wish the DA was a little more forthcoming, especially in the current political climate, but we've had people, reach out and say, yes, they were. I've received a message about people getting phone calls now, a series of questions as well. So I'm just, and by all means, investigate if there is, a crime or something, but this really seems more of a political attack than anything. And just a little background, I have filed a couple of public records lawsuits and been very successful. And so, I'm aware of the process, and I just hope that the district attorney's office and the Monterey County elections will be forthcoming, because like I said, this could definitely cause a chilling effect on people participating, especially in upcoming petitions. So, yeah.
When you
could I jump in for a second?
Yes.
According to another member of my family who is a military veteran, the investigator was carrying a firearm.
Oh,
So
really?
That I find very strange, and somewhat. I'm not really sure how standard it is for DA investigators to carry firearms, but I find that very strange.
So that's wow. Okay. So I can imagine I personally would find that very intimidating if someone came to the door with a firearm asking me about my signing of a petition at a farmer's market in Old Town Salinas.
Luckily I'm pretty oblivious, so I didn't notice, but yes. Okay.
So, Councilmember Sandoval, circling back to you, you were mentioning that you yourself have filed requests under, I think you said,
the Public Records Act.
Public Records Act. Yeah. What do you want to share? Maybe one of those experiences?
Sure. Well, you mean past public records request?
Yes.
Oh, sure. Well, basically, there's been some for administrative disciplinary records at Hartnell College, some other communications regarding the Solid Healthcare District. They've all resulted in their compliance. Ultimately, it depends on an agency of how much they want to fight public records, right? But if it's okay, I'd want to I know we might have just a few minutes, and I just wanted to for those who may not be familiar with it, this was probably over 200 volunteers who went out into our community, not just at farmers market, but knocking on doors, special events, who spent countless hours, nights, weekends, sometimes missing work, sacrificed time, at work or with their family. And it became, I think, the start of a movement here in Salinas. And I know people from across the state are watching. And I think that this is, there's going to be a lot of attacks, but this is a testament to, people paying attention and waking up and realizing that who they put into office matters. And I want to commend those volunteers, like I said, and even those who went out of their way to go out and sign. So there was some opportunities for people to sign where they were at, but there was other people. I remember one time it was like 9:30 at night, 2 days before, and people were driving to where I was at to sign in an attempt to, be able to have a better quality of life. Because this isn't just about a couple of bucks a month. I spoke to some nurses a couple of months ago, and they're like, this could be the difference between people getting their medicine or rationing out their medicine, or the type of food that they eat, or the money that they spend in a small business. And so, I just want to commend the volunteers, and the community is paying attention. I think the council is paying attention, but we just need to stay engaged and not let these, in my opinion, political attacks stop us from participating and getting engaged.
Yeah, and I had a question for the council member, if that was all right.
Yeah, sure. Go for it. This is a conversation.
Because the most remarkable part of this to me so far is the idea that the DA's office may have acquired these signatures illegally. If that is determined to be the case, who would be in charge of investigating that, and who do we know in that office?
Well, Mary told me I should have gone to law school, but, I'm going to say it's probably the Attorney General's job. I know that there is at the state level, where people have concerns, they can report it to an elections department at the state level, but I'm going to assume that's Rob Bonta. I know that the president of LULAC has reached out to them, but that's who would need to do it. Like I said, I understood that court orders were public record and I couldn't find one. So, and I also tried calling our registrar of voters, haven't received a phone call back either.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah. I mean, there's not proof positive that such a thing has occurred, but even the very idea of it, I think, is pretty insane.
And I want to also say that, there's been a history of investigations where, there's law enforcement has said, no comment, ongoing investigation, but there's time where they've released information. There's time where they've held press conferences. So the no comment thing, it doesn't fly with me because, in Spanish, they say cuando te conviene. And that means, when it's convenient for you. There's, and I'll share with you, I've dealt with the district attorney on other issues and complaints where they have clearly said if the State Fair Political Practices Commission is investigating, then we're going to wait for them because we don't want to duplicate efforts. As a matter of fact, I have to dig up an email from the assistant DA where he says as such. And I've met with Assistant DA Paccioni as well in the past. And so, I know that they have discretion on what and how they investigate, but they've deferred to the state in the past, or there's no need to duplicate. I mean, they can cooperate. There's nothing wrong with that. But like I said, there's just a lot of unanswered questions, which if they really wanted to, they could answer.
I just wanted to, for listeners, who is Mary, Councilmember Sandoval? You're saying
Mary
somebody
is a wonderful
told you
lady
to
I met back in
law school?
2017. I don't have. She's Mary Duan, former reporter for the Monterey County Weekly, and she's yes, and she's my friend. I think she likes my wife more than she likes me, but she's
that
she's
happens at times.
Who
What's
maybe
that?
One day will run. She's a wonderful person who maybe one day will run for office. Who knows?
So, in terms of, I think both of you have commented on the potential for just tons of money to impact what happens. I just wanted to share with listeners that the California Apartment Association, which is just one very powerful organization with a lot of money at its disposal, they are paying attention to what's happening in Salinas. They have an article from September 26, 2025. I can't access like the full article because that requires membership, but I think it's what people might not realize at times is that what you do locally has a lot of impact on an industry statewide, that being the real estate industry. So I thought, I mean, I think a lot of times people pay attention to national news. And I'm not saying don't pay attention because obviously everybody should pay attention. But I'll just say, and yes, maybe this is my bias, but I actually think people should really pay attention to what happens at home, like in one's region, because that's actually what the big money tends to do is they pay attention to what happens in every single jurisdiction, in every county, in every municipality. So if the California Apartment Association is paying attention to Salinas, I know that I should also be paying attention to Salinas and what happens to rent stabilization. So I thought I would just highlight that for listeners. So
and I just want to correct, Mary Duan was an editor, but the Apartment Association was in Salinas. As a matter of fact, I think that they were sitting in on a meeting with the chamber. But I also want to say that I think my brother shared with me that they in down south spent $1 million to stop some rent stabilization ordinance, and the local folks raised about $30,000, and People Power still won. So just want to pour that out there that despite the the money that was poured in, they're not all powerful.
Right. Money does not actually always win the day. We have about, I believe, 3 more minutes. Any last words from either of you?
Yeah, I just wanted to quickly remark on what the council member was just saying is I heard a quote very recently, I can't remember where it's from, the idea that no raindrop believes it's the flood. And so even if your individual action doesn't feel like it's making a difference, it is the collective of that individual action at the local level that can very reasonably make a large difference. It's something of a cliche, but you can make a difference. If you think you can't make a difference, then you won't. If you think you can make a difference, then you will.
Wow, be the raindrop. Thank you, Sam.
Wow, Sam. Thank you.
Councilmember Sandoval?
I'm speechless, so thank you very much.
Oh, okay.
No, I don't want to be speechless because this is an opportunity to share with the community, but I just want to encourage people, just like the show that was before us, is that we really need people to get engaged. And even if they don't think they'll have an impact, they will, even if it's something as simple as sharing a social media post or making a comment or liking a post to increase the algorithm for the outreach. There's just so much, with technology at our fingertips, it's as easy as sending a text, did you vote? And I want to take it one step further. I met somebody who was running for PTA, and she said that she made people prove that they voted.
Nice.
And I think that this next election, the thing is going to be like, yeah, I voted. Okay, prove me. Show me the ballot going into the ballot box because it's that important. So, anyways, that's my last little spill to get folks engaged. And thank you very much. And Sam, I want to thank you. I've never met you, but your mom's awesome. So by default, you must be awesome.
Thank you.
And thank you for having the courage to come on the air and sharing your story. I know there's a lot of people who are fearful. This is a scary time in our country, and especially locally if people are going to get this kind of treatment for signing something. So thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate your kind words, and thank you for all the effort you've been making on behalf of Salinas renters.
Okay.
Well, to echo the words of our guests, be the raindrop, even if you don't think you're the flood. And voters, do your homework and make your friends prove that they voted in this. I would say that extends to this election in November and also in November 2026. Thank you both, Councilmember Sandoval and Sam Messenger, for being on Talk of the Bay.
Thank you.
Thank you.